Today we're diving into a fascinating story, one that might just challenge a pretty common image we have of God. It's an ancient story about dialogue, betrayal, and a God who, believe it or not, changes his mind.
So let me ask you, when you think of the God of the Old Testament, what's the first image that comes to mind? For a lot of people, it's this unbending, kind of scary figure, right? Full of law and fury. But is that really the whole story?
Yeah, that image of a fierce, wrathful deity is super common. But the book of Exodus, it paints a much more complicated picture. And we're about to look at this one dramatic event that pretty much turns that whole stereotype on its head.
Okay, so our story kicks off at a moment of absolute crisis. You've got Moses, he's way up on a mountain, and the people he's supposed to be leading, well, they're down below about to make a huge, catastrophic mistake.
I mean, try to imagine this for a second. Your leader, the one guy who actually talks to God, has just vanished. He's up on this smoky mountain, and days are turning into weeks. You're out in the middle of nowhere. Of course, panic starts to set in. And in that fear, they do something drastic. They build their own god, a golden calf, something they can see, something they can touch.
So from way up on that mountaintop, God sees this betrayal happening in real time. And his reaction? Well, it's everything that stereotype would lead you to believe. It is swift, and it is absolutely furious.
But what happens next? This is what's so unexpected. Instead of just, boom, instant destruction, what we get is this incredible high-stakes negotiation. A real dialogue between God and a human that is literally going to change the course of history.
God's verdict is just absolute. He tells Moses, okay, that's it. Leave me alone, I'm going to destroy them, and I'm going to start over with you. I'll make your family into a great nation. A total reset.
Just think about that for a minute. Moses is basically being handed the deal of a lifetime. He gets to be the new Abraham, the founder of a brand new nation, and he gets to ditch this rebellious, difficult crowd. He could just say okay and walk away. What would you even do?
But Moses, in this just incredible act of courage, says no. He refuses the offer, and instead he pushes back with this masterful three-part argument. First, he reminds God, hey, these are your people. You brought them out of Egypt. Then he appeals to God's public image, basically saying, what are the other nations going to think? And for the final blow, he brings up God's own promises, the unbreakable oaths he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. He's literally arguing with God based on God's own character.
And this is the pivot point of the whole story. This is the moment that just shatters that simple stereotype and gives us a completely different portrait of God.
And then we get one of the most stunning sentences in the entire Old Testament. Then the Lord relented. He didn't bring the disaster he threatened. He changed his plan.
Now that word relent is so key here. It means to abandon a harsh plan, to soften your stance. Essentially, it means to change your mind. And that's exactly what happened here, all because of this conversation with Moses.
And that's the shocking twist, isn't it? A human being, through a bold, honest conversation, actually participated in changing the divine plan. This isn't a story about a distant God just pulling strings. It's about a dynamic, responsive relationship.
So, what does this all mean for us? What's the takeaway? Well, this incredible event totally reframes not just our view of God, but also how we see our own role in the world.
First, let's talk about God's anger. The stereotype says it's this core part of his personality, that he's just always angry. But this story suggests something else. What if God's anger isn't a core attribute, but a reaction? A sign that he cares so deeply about the relationship that its betrayal actually hurts.
And you know what? This idea becomes the main description of God later on. The Bible itself starts hammering this home. God is compassionate, gracious, slow to anger, and just overflowing with love.
Just think about it in your own life. What's worse, when someone you love is angry with you, or when they're completely indifferent to you? Anger, in a weird way, shows there's still a connection. It means the relationship still matters. Indifference? Well, that's when you know it's really over.
And this story also completely elevates our view of ourselves. It shows that God doesn't need us, but he chooses to partner with us. He gives humanity this incredibly honored, active role. We're not just passive subjects waiting for orders. We are his representatives. And our prayers, our words, our actions, they have real weight. They genuinely matter to God.
So this changes everything about how we think of prayer, right? It's not about finding some magic words or the right formula to get what you want.
It's about entering into a genuine dialogue, an honest-to-goodness back and forth with a God who actually listens, who engages, and who responds.
And that leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on. If this ancient story is a model for a real partnership between us and God, if our dialogue can actually influence the divine, then what does that mean for our role, our responsibility in shaping the world around us?